Good old Subnautica. One of my favorite games. It's one of my favorite games of all time. And it's been quite the journey watching this game develop into what it is now. Subnautica is truly a work of art, and I've been playing the game for many years. So as is tradition here on the channel, let's go over a few things that made this game special to me throughout my gaming career. Hey, what's going on, geeks? Maxusthebeast is here, and welcome back to a trip down memory lane. Tonight we are talking about Subnautica, which, if you've been sticking around for the past couple years, has a decent history here on the channel as well, where I've not only talked about the game in previous commentary style videos, but I also did a Let's Play video series on it quite a while ago, and kind of left it in the air. I got really behind with it and never got the chance to finish it, but we'll get more into that later. For now, let's start at the very beginning, which connects also to Subnautica's history. You see, back in 2014, Subnautica was released on Steam in early access. There wasn't too terribly much to it. It was just an underwater survival game set in an alien planet, and that was your premise, and that was pretty much it. The fauna was limited, and there weren't any Leviathans except for the Reef backs. So while there were stalkers and I believe sand sharks, your threats were limited. But it was still a pretty game to look through, even though a lot of things still were missing textures and lacked a lot of content or context behind them. In fact, the aurora on the map for a bit was just a 2D model, where if you got close to it, it was completely flat. You couldn't interact with it, you couldn't explore it. Eventually they rendered in a full 3D model as you see today, but for a while it wasn't explorable. Now, here's how it connects back to me. Is it back in 2014, there was this phase in the survival genre where a lot of underwater survival games came out in 2014. Stranded Deep was also becoming popular at this time, and I watched a YouTuber by the name of Paul Source Jr. who not only got me really into Minecraft, but also introduced me to games like Starbound, Stranded Deep, and then eventually Subnautica, where he did a series where he took a peek at a lot of early access or indie games just to give them some recognition and support the developers, as well as potentially get potential players invested and interested. And again, this underwater genre was expanding, with Stranded Deep being one of the big hits of it, but Subnautica was alongside it, truly being something distinct because it's not something set on Earth, and the creatures are outlandish and truly alien. Now, at the time, I didn't really have a computer that could really handle it. For the longest time, I used my Mac laptop for gaming. I believe I mentioned this in the past, and some of the videos I have over here on the channel were published from that laptop. But Christmas 2014 rolled around, and I got a bunch of Steam gift cards. I didn't purchase Subnautica at the time, but I put it on my wish list. A year later, December 2015, the game had expanded a little bit, and other YouTubers like Jacksepticeye and Markiplier had started up their first playthroughs of the game. I didn't really watch either of them at the time, but I couldn't help but notice the game popping up more frequently on my recommended feed. So, December 2015, I decided to give the game a go. But I'm still in this weird predicament where my computer just can't handle it. And when I first loaded it up, it ran horrendously, and I played maybe about 20 minutes and then gave up, because I just couldn't stand the poor frame rate. Now, this meant that I eventually deleted Subnautica, and just let it sit in my library, uninstalled, for quite a while. But then in 2016, I picked it up again. I decided to give it another go, still on the same laptop, because I'd heard a lot had changed and a lot more story elements had been put in the game. And by watching a couple YouTubers' playthroughs, I'd seen the Reaper, and I wanted to encounter it for myself. So I hopped in, and while the game still ran like crap, I started to have fun. I was willing this time to put the poor frame rate past me, and still give the game a fair chance, and actually try to enjoy it. And I had a blast. I sank, pun not intended, around 45 hours into the game on my laptop. And while it looked like crap and ran like crap, I was having fun. And I was truly invested in the underwater world that Subnautica had created. One of my fondest memories was exploring the deep Grand Reef for the first time. I had just got my prawn suit and was more than eager to test it out in the deeper waters. And the deep Grand Reef was a great place to start with the unique atmosphere and terrifying fauna. So I headed on down there to take a quick peek because I had heard that the third Degassi base was located in the biome. So after sinking down and walking on into the cave system, I was ready. Unfortunately, the prawn suit is affected by gravity, meaning I can't just glide around like I could with the Sea Glide, or with the Sea Moth. So it was a bit more difficult to get around. I had to walk alongside the seafloor for quite a bit, and dodge the crab squids that consistently knocked my power out, and wailed on my machine with their claws. It was kind of creepy, but I could punch them and I'd be okay. After avoiding several more, I finally made it to the base of the hill underneath the Degassi base. As I approached, I heard a noise behind me. I turned around, and there was a crab squid literally 2 inches from my face. That was one of the worst jump scares I had ever had in my life. I freaked out, basically just spammed the mouse buttons as hard as I could to punch the thing to get it to go away. And then I turn around again, another warper had popped in once again 2 inches from my face. My heart rate was already pretty high from the crab squid, and my terror only worsened after the warper showed up. After dealing with both threats, I was in hysterics. I wasn't doing too great. I had to pause the game and just take a break for just a period of about 15 minutes because my Lanta, my heart couldn't do this. But I eventually was able to explore the base and move on with my day. But my second big memory was my first time exploring the lava zone. Now, before one of the patches, I forget which one it was, but there was a giant crater right beside the Aurora that led almost straight down into the lava zone. So used to, you could go around the Aurora, dodge the Reapers, and then find this giant cave that would eventually take you into the lava zone. There wasn't much to the cave. It was a lot of hardened lava, and the ecosystem there was non-existent. There were no fish, there were no predators. It was honestly kind of ominous, where you were just going around corners seeing nothing. It was just these large open spaces of nothingness. But eventually, once you go down a certain depth, you hit lava zone. And you finally start to see lava forming around you, popping in around you. And then you hear it. You see, the sea dragon, one of the game's Leviathans, had a spawning point right in front of that entrance. So after you got over some lava and started going over some platforms on the with the prawn suit, the dragon would be swimming around somewhere above you. So you could hear it roaring, and then you could see it. And I was too scared to move. I remember just sitting there for minutes, just wondering, okay, what do I do now? I'm down here, like 1,000 meters below sea level, and there is a giant Leviathan class predator not too far away from me. I ended up just sitting there for a little bit and then bailing. I eventually worked on my courage to go back again, but that first impression definitely left its mark on me. But after exploring the lava zone for a bit, I had explored pretty much all the content there was in that current state of Subnautica. So I took a break again, because there wasn't too much for me to do. Not to mention I was having some weird crashing issues, so I didn't really know what to do with that, so I thought the best choice would just be to leave the game alone. Now, this is where the channel kind of comes in, because even when I was getting into Subnautica in 2016, I had just started up the channel. The channel was very new, and I was still trying to decide what to do with it. But the problem still remained that I had this laptop that couldn't do too much. But that problem was resolved in March when I received my first gaming rig, which could actually handle Subnautica. I was ecstatic. I could actually play the game in solid frame rate and record it for YouTube. And that's what I did. It was early April, I believe, when I finally got around to making the Subnautica videos, but I started up my own Let's Play series. As I progressed through the series, I was having fun with it, people seemed to be enjoying it, and all was well. But I started playing with the experimental branch, which meant I got access to future updates earlier, but there were some kinks that weren't yet worked out. Like for a few episodes, there were missing textures where certain plants didn't load in properly, and the aurora looked like a bowl of Fruit Loops for a bit. Yeah, it was weird. But eventually that got worked out, and I was able to start delving into some in-game stuff before it was technically out. But I eventually got really behind. I started prioritizing other videos, other Let's Plays, other series, story time, other like commentary things, etc. And Subnautica got pushed to the back burner. So eventually when I got back into publishing Subnautica content again, the game had finally released in early 2018. So that meant the footage that I was getting out had been recorded some point in 2017 and was still in these experimental branches, as well as with early access in general. So I wasn't playing the current version of, or wasn't showcasing the current version of the game, but I still had to get these videos up. But eventually I made the final couple episodes where I would do the finished game content and finish the game. However, I made a mistake. My computer was warning me that I was running out of storage, and I just deleted a bunch of content without looking at it first. Most of it was previous attempts, corrupted footage, that sort of thing. But I lumped in a couple actually good videos in with all of that, and the Subnautica finale was thrown in with that nonsense. So that meant that I deleted the finale for Subnautica, and I never went back to right my wrongs. I just left it as is. The last episode that I put out back late 2018 was the last episode that I cared to publish again. My love for Subnautica was still there for sure. And I still wanted to make content for it, but my days of doing Subnautica Let's Play were over. I couldn't get back to that point again, and even if I did another Let's Play, or another playthrough to get back to where I was, it wouldn't be the same. It just wouldn't be the same. It'll be a lot of work to make up that progress to get to where I was. I considered back in 2019 doing a new playthrough with the completed game, but because my content has changed so much since 2018, or heck, even more since 2019 as well, but my content has changed so much since I first started the Let's Play that I decided against it. Because to me, it would feel kind of jarring to switch between commentary style content and then Let's Play again. I sort of made it work for a little bit, but my days of being a pure Let's Playing YouTuber were long behind me and are still long behind me. But Subnautica is still a game that means a lot to me. And I now have access to the sequel, Below Zero, which is nearing its completion as well, which we need to talk about again. And I did talk about it when it first released on Early Access back in January 2019. It's almost been 2 years since I made that video talking about it. That is weird to think about. But I still have Below Zero to get back into. But for some reason, Subnautica still holds its own, and I always come back to Subnautica Classic at one point or another. I recently started up a new playthrough here, which is the gameplay you are seeing here. I've really gotten back into Subnautica, and I sort of know why. I've been longing for a game like Subnautica for a while that truly gets me invested in the world and puts me in awe about its beautiful surroundings and its terrifying encounters. And what's kind of nice is that I still have the Subnautica veteran mindset where I still know where everything is and what everything does and all that jazz, but my tolerance of the game has decreased. And that sounds negative, but it's not, because my tolerance of the Leviathans and of the sea creatures has been reduced drastically. So instead, where in my later days of my Subnautica career, I wasn't scared of the Reapers or dragons or whatever else was out there. I had faced them all and lost my fear. But now I have lost that resilience and have fallen back into being nervous, which makes exploring the game, even though I know the biomes and know where things are, it still makes them tense, and even maybe a little bit worse because I know where the things are, but I also know that I have to go where the Leviathans are in order to progress through the game. So it is nice kind of being able to go back into the game with blinders kind of both on and off at the same time. Often, since I know the story, I know the map, I know the Leviathans and all the creatures and whatnot, but blinders back on because of just still feeling a bit fish out of water. Again, pun not intended. After not playing frequently for the past few years. I mean, according to Steam, the last time I launched the game was back in March of last year. And even then, I didn't play it. I just kind of hopped in to check something because I thought that Below Zero, there was a Subnautica update alongside Below Zero, but it turned out to be some bug fixes, so I didn't really stick around for it. But just because I have stopped doing the Subnautica Let's Play doesn't mean I'm done with the game in general. Nor does it mean that I'm done with making videos about the game either. I have a few projects that I'm interested in starting up involving Subnautica. Specifically involving a certain Leviathan. I'll give you a little hint. That's right. A video talking about the ghost Leviathan will be coming up in coming weeks. I feel like this Leviathan in particular needs a bit more love than it's gotten because it truly is one of the most, and to me, the most terrifying creature in the game. But that's another topic for another time. So on that note, I want to leave you all with a spooky farewell by looking at this ghost Leviathan. But thank you all for tuning in. Happy 2021, as weird as it's been for the past few days. But hopefully y'all are staying well, staying safe. Happy New Year. Let's improve from here. Let's make this a better year. Anyway, thanks for watching, and as always, Maxusthebeast is out.